Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to our Build Your Career webinar series. My name is Michelle Fawn, and I manage our education and professional certification products and services here at the IEEE Computer Society. Each month, we will be hosting vital business skills that will help you excel throughout your career. Topics covered include communication and presentation skills, interviewing tips, personal branding, effective writing, tips to improve your outside-the-box thinking, and more. Before we get started, I would like to address some housekeeping tasks. The recording of this webinar has started. You can ask any question in the Q&A panel. Our speaker today is Elsa, who she will be answering as many questions as she can following her presentation. In a few days, you will receive an email with instructions to access both the presentation slides and recording on demand. Today's webinar is on what everybody is saying. People make the decision whether they like you or not within the first 5 seconds of seeing you. Our body language can be screaming an inaccurate representation of yourself and your intent. Elsa will teach you how to modify your current body languages for a better message. Joining us today is Elsa Velasco-Paul, co-founder and creator of the M&E Group, a marketing and consulting firm based in Tulsa, Oklahoma since 1997. Elsa also served as the international CX manager for the global company, the Crosby Group. She also trains corporations both in person and webinar formats on many different subjects such as persuasive communication, design thinking, branding, leadership, and continuous improvement processes. Thank you. Elsa, thank you for presenting today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everybody. It is my absolute pleasure to be with you guys today. And I'm always excited to join the IEEE Computer Society group because you guys are amazing. I have connected with many of you on LinkedIn and outside and through our Facebook page, and your questions are short of amazing. So it's really a thrill. I get personally excited to be here with you. Back in 1995, Daniel Goldman made a super bold statement, and this was based on decades of his research. He said that those who can effectively read and interpret nonverbal communication and manage how others perceive them will enjoy greater success in life than individuals who lack this skill. Wow. And that's precisely why we're here today. This webinar will help you observe the world around us, ourselves, and determine the meaning of nonverbals. And we're going to start by doing something very powerful about this. Once you know what nonverbal means and where you are coming from, that's the part of awareness, the results are short of amazing. And I know this because I coach personally folks that go all the way from the C-suite to students and even folks that are re-entering the career path. Again, thank you so much to the IEEE, the Computer Society team, Scott, Eric, Michelle. You guys are amazing to work with, and the support is incredible. I'm very in awe every time that I see how your work supporting your members during this time has been so on point. And we are absolutely excited to be part of this support. That's exactly why we're here. If you guys can't go to the workshop, then the workshop is going to come to you. Always, I don't want to forget my support team in the background. They are the ones, the unsung heroes on this one. I believe Mike is co-flying the Q&A desk today, and he is really good at getting right back to you guys. So like Michelle said, go ahead. Any questions that you have, do not leave them for the end. Put them on there, because if you have a glimpse of something you want to know, your brain is on fire, and that's exactly the time to send those questions over. And the more the merrier, so let's get this started. Again, I am super proud, honored, and excited to be your coach for this life-changing session. Let's go. Now, the first thing that I want to know is I want to find out who is here. Right now on your screen, you're going to see a poll that is going to say the stage in your career that you are currently in. And we have several options. We have students, PhD candidates, entry level, team leads, supervisors, and it goes to the managerial level and all the way to the C-suite. So if you don't mind, take a second and let's click there so I can make sure that I'm tailoring it to your needs. Please let us know if you have any questions about this. Michelle, how about we give them some 30 seconds or so?
Sure.
Okay, good. So just click once, and then, Michelle, if you wouldn't mind, once the time is over, would you mind showing us the poll results?
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much. And the purpose of again, asking you this is because we want to make sure that at the level that you are, we are adapting the text that you have today. You're going to see we've been doing this for a while, so there's nothing pretty much that we haven't seen and that we can't help you with. Michelle, do we have enough information to show a poll? Beautiful. Oh, I love it. Hey, to my PhD candidates, hang on. It's totally worth it. Beautiful. Okay, I have an awesome mix here. I'm very, very excited to see that we have my students. They're always on my heart. But I love having the folks that are in the managerial level, because that is where, unfortunately, nonverbal is a little bit lacking. So you guys are going to have the upper hand. Perfect. And I'm great to see you guys here. Now, with that being said, this page is our disclaimer. You guys have seen it, but it's basically here to relay the core of what the M&E group is. When you need support, come and see us, because some of this information is proprietary. I want you to please check with us before sharing. 99.9% of the time, we're going to be more than happy to work with you, especially in a fascinating area of study like this one. Body language is fascinating in itself because it has a universal applicability. The responses, and therefore the applicability, have been proven over and over and over that they work regardless of where we are, just as long as we appreciate culture and environmental factors. There is not a specific word that we're going to use when we're talking about nonverbal communications, but it is the most effective communication way that conveys human feelings way more accurately than any form of verbal communication. Now, let's go back to the core. What are we exactly saying? Well, nonverbals is all about this. Imagine that there's a superpower. Wouldn't it be wonderful for you to have the superpower of reading minds? Imagine that you walk into a room, in the conference room, and everybody is in there, and immediately you know who is going to be willing to work with you. You also know who is having a bad day and who you should not engage at all. How about this one? You go home, and you know immediately once you open the door that your spouse is having a bad day, but that it has nothing to do with you. Your spouse just needs your support. That's what nonverbal is. Arguably, communication is the most important skill that we need to develop as human beings. Hands down, we're not going to refute that. At the top of this communication pyramid is going to be nonverbals. Nonverbals is all the way from body language to gestures. Even silence is a nonverbal. The numbers go from 60 to 95%, depends on what study you're using, that says what is the percent of communication that happens to be in the nonverbal group. For the sake of time, because we have limited time, we are going to focus only on macro nonverbals. Macro nonverbals is the big stuff. Micro nonverbals is going to be those fleeting 1-2 second signs that you see on people's faces. If you want to know more about that, connect with us later, and we can talk about it. Now, what exactly is nonverbal good for? Well, number one, it communicates way faster and much more effectively. Nonverbal communication is going to help you reinforce, for example, or modify what you said in words. Somebody that says, hey, do you want to do this? And they say yes, but they shrug their shoulders and they look down. Buddy, that is a no in any part of this planet. It can also convey information about an emotional state. Somebody walks in, slams the door, red face, and you said, are you okay? And she says, yes. Yeah, that is not a yes. It also helps define and reinforce the relationship between people. This is a key one. Did you know that when you are laughing in a big group, the person that turns around to look at whomever, that's the person that they feel the closest to? So that's key. In the office, there's a joke being said, look at the person that you're interested in, look where they are looking to share that moment. That's super, super important. It also helps provide feedback to the other person, a thumbs up or a smile when somebody is talking and giving a presentation. It totally regulates the flow of communication. For example, if you use signals to tell people stop talking, or I raise my hand to say that I want to talk. I want to do a quick experiment with you because every time that we've done this session live, it has been so, so powerful. On the next slide, you're going to see a picture, two pictures actually, of the same gentleman. Each picture is going to be labeled with the letters A or B. And what I want you to do is I'm going to ask you a question, and all you have to do is make a quick selection. Once that quick selection is made, you'll be able to click on the poll, and that's all we have to do. Pretty simple. Look at the picture and make a selection. Here we go. Let's see. A or B. If you had to give $5, who would you give it to? Would you give it to A or would you give it to B? We're going to open up the poll and pick. If you had to give $5 to A or to B, who would you give it to? And Michelle, I'm going to use your generosity and ask you when you see that we're good to show the poll results for everybody.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
I'll give him a few minutes.
Sure. Sounds perfect. Sounds perfect. Not surprising. Wonderful. Wonderful. Now, let's look at this. This correlates absolutely with the Bangor University study. The study was made back in, I want to say in the 80s, 90s, where in Wales, 36 undergrads were recruited to play a game. The game was very, very simple. They were going to win physical money, real money. And all they had to do was, the way for them to get money or to get paid is if people would vote for them. They didn't know, the other people didn't know, but they were either doing a polite smile or they were doing a genuine smile. Now, if you look at the screen, A is the polite smile. I call it the hallway smile because it's the quick smile that you do when you see somebody, but you're just passing through. B is the real smile, the genuine smile. You know what is the difference? That in that study from Bangor, those folks who did the real smile, they got paid way more. They got paid 70% more than the folks that had the polite smile. Do you know why? Because we are primed to understand what real smiles look like. The lady who did this is a psychologist, Erin Harry. She said the really surprising finding was that they prefer genuinely smiling opponents to the polite smiling ones, even before they had enough data to decide why they were doing that. So the research showed that genuine smiles are worth more to us than polite smiles. Like in this picture, the one with a genuine smile, and we know that it's a genuine smile because if you can look closely to the eyes, you see what we call the wrinkle laugh lines. Yeah, those wrinkle laugh lines cannot be made up. They only happen when you're doing a real smile. In 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes, the gentleman in B received 70% more money than the gentleman that was in A before he opened his mouth. Now, at this point, that's when it's good to know that, we don't want to use nonverbal communication as a way to empty our audience's pocket. But it doesn't hurt to know that good body language can absolutely be monetized. Now, what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to go from the A, B, C's all the way to how to use it. It's going to have a good mix of foundational aspects of body language, which includes, why does it happen and where does it happen? We're also going to learn about how these reactions look like via two keywords, comfort and discomfort signals. And of course, we're going to share, as usual, the key tactics to get better. We're going to have a healthy mix of the one-on-one, a little bit of theoretical, followed by something really interesting called studios. Studio means practice, hands-on time, and that is what we would be doing in the live session. This is when we take folks from the audience and we help them move from current stage, and if they need some adapting, that we do it with permission from everybody, of course. When you hear the word studio during this session, make sure you take pen and paper or record it, whatever you want, because this is where you're going to see all that we're learning in practice. Before we do that, I want to introduce you to a friend. She knows a lot about body language. You're going to see why. Ladies and gentlemen, let me present you Mikayla Maroney. Whenever we do this live, people laugh, because Mikayla Maroney became a sensation back in 2012. Not because of her exploits and vaults in gymnastics, but because of this face. Turns out that although quite a super successful Olympic gymnast, Mikayla became famous for hear this, 2-second face that she made on live TV during the Medal Awards. After a decade of super hard work, she had just lost the gold medal at vaults by decimals. Mikayla commented later, I remember doing the face for literally 2 seconds. If you watch the video, it is 2 seconds. And she remembers thinking, did I just make a face? Because it's natural. I do it all the time. When she got back to her room in the athletes' village that night, she learned about the global reaction to this face. She even received a text message from her dad, and she searched the internet. Well, she found her face photoshopped on the NASA Mars rover, on rainbows, on Mozart, and rocks all over the planet. Well, 2 takeaways from this experience. Number 1, always consider reactions in context. This girl, after working herself to tears for 10 years, had just lost by a decimal. And number 2, if we see signals in others, we are doing it too. Okay, I know what some of you are thinking. Wait a minute, Elsa. This sounds super interesting. I think all this nonverbal stuff, I think it's made up. I think it's all in your head. Well, my friend, I happen to agree with you. It really is all in our heads. It's actually deeper in our heads than we know. It's actually in our brains. In this case, for the sake of the foundational aspect, we're going to use MacLean's triune brain theory, but I have to be honest, the study of how the brain manages and responds to stimuli according to evolutionary need is extremely old, as in centuries old. However, it's not as old as our reptilian brain, that top one. The reptilian brain, the oldest and the fastest of our 3 brain systems, consists of the stem and the cerebellum. The reptilian brain is going to control vital functions. Think of heart rate and breathing, body temperature, balance. Because the reptilian brain is primarily concerned with physical survival, it also plays a key role in reproduction, social dominance, and in establishing and defending territory. The other one, the cortical brain, we also call it the neocortex. It is the newest one, but it's also the slowest. And it is the seat of our conscious thought. This one, think of the executive for the brain. It's going to handle activities such as language, analysis, and strategizing. So we are going to use it when we are organizing thoughts, when we're setting goals, when we're strategizing and solving complex numbers. The limbic brain is in the middle of these two, and it is the seat of emotions. That is going to be our best friend for this rest of the hour. The limbic brain, in particular the amygdala, is the part of the brain that receives emotional information and reacts to it. So as such, think of the amygdala as an alarm system for the brain. It takes all the incoming stimuli, both physical and psychological, to decide whether or not what is happening is threatening. It tends to also become aroused in proportion to the strength of the signal. So the arousal to danger is always going to come faster and with much more intensity, for example, than the arousal to a potential reward. Now, all of these super complex systems function around answering one simple question. Can this harm me? Well, maybe. And that's the prime directive for the limbic system. It's thinking, is this impactful to our survival? And this is a super, super fast, quick decision flow. If it's dangerous, it's going to go directly one route. If it's not, then it's going to be set aside as an indifferent. Think of how many different things we pass by on our daily lives that we don't react to. If we did, our lives would be spent in an incredibly different manner. If there's enough information to qualify it as important, then our brain has to do another decision tree. It has to decide, is this comfort or good or love related, or is this a fear, discomfort signal? For the sake of time, again, we're going to focus on the discomfort section. Now, who is going to make the call with regards to how do we react? Well, unfortunately, guys, it's our emotions. Yep, it's emotions, not the rational side. Emotions are the key drivers in decision making. Our logical processes are often only rational justifications for an emotional decision that we made. And because most conscious deliberation, because some of these are made without the conscious deliberation, we're going to see the impact via unannounced, abrupt, and in most cases, impossible to resist reactions. That's why the limbic brain is terrible at lying. Now, the neocortex, this is his jam, because the neocortex is totally capable of dishonesty. You know what it does? It takes reliable information, repackages out, and says what is the appropriate response. So, for the sake of our learning, we're going to focus on, boom, you got it, the limbic system, because that is where the truth is going to be. The limbic brain is going to be responsible for value judgments, and it's going to play a key role in absolutely all nonverbal communication. So this explains why, even though there's many cultural influenced body language systems, an athlete, when they succeed, they do the same victory stance, right? Now, for example, in real life, you go through the hallway, you see a friend. Immediately, your eyebrows go up, your eyes widen, even your hands open up. A team member reacts to bad news about a project by hunching shoulders, lowering the head. The winner of a conference door prize touches the base of her neck in surprise and delight. A coworker's lips compress, they disappear because their boss has just asked them a very unpleasant question. It happens globally. All of these nonverbal responses can be seen whether you're in Paris, Chicago, Tulsa, Beijing, Dubai. Now, let me show you real quick what these comfort signs look like before we go into the world of discomfort signals. So, the limbic system purpose is to ensure basically the survival of the species by making a good decision. We want to avoid danger or discomfort, which is going to elicit fear, and we want to move towards positive stimuli or love-based decisions. It's amazing. Our limbic system is amazing at remembering experiences and categorizing them into comfort or discomfort. Seeing a friend, a loved one, favorite foods will elicit the key signs of love, pleasure, for example, by again showing the big eyes. See the little boy with the big eyes, the big mouth, the open arms. Look at the group on the bottom. They are exposing their neck. They're super, super open. And like the example that we gave of the athlete with the arms raised up. This is great because it's going to happen regardless of not we think about it. How did this happen? Well, what's going on is that the limbic system leaks this love, comfort feeling in the form of body language congruent with the positive feelings. That means we can't fake it. When the limbic brain is in a state of comfort, it sends the safety signals to our body. And these safety signals look like contentment, high confidence, vulnerability, openness. When we feel safe, we feel confident enough to open up. And that's why you see that we expose our core and our critical areas, our neck, our center, even the palms of our hands. Now, let's look at the other side of the equation. And this is the discomfort or fear. On the other side, one of the classic ways our limbic brain has assured our survival is by dictating our body's response to danger. We've managed to retain that visceral life-saving reactions to danger, and those reactions are going to look like freeze, flight, or fight. Our brains develop strategies to compensate for the power that other bigger predators had over us. A key one, number one, was to be invisible. Movement is going to attract attention. So, in the presence of potential danger, what do? We freeze on our tracks. We do that because we want to become invisible to that 300-pound predator that's coming at this way. Nowadays, we don't have the 300,000-pound predator, 300-pound, not 300,000. But we react in a similar mode when we're at home, for example. We're not expecting any visitors, and the doorbell rings or the phone rings. What do? We freeze, and if we were somebody else, we look at each other. And then we move and react. This freeze response gave us precious seconds to make unimaginably fast calculations and decide what to do. Okay, let's say that freeze didn't work. We got detected. Boom. Then flight response kicks in. In this case, we don't want to be invisible. In this case, we want to become as distant as we can from the imminent danger. And this is in hopes that our escape is going to be enough. Here we are in an evasive, blocking, distancing mode. Think of these three words because we're going to use them later. Let's put this in real life. At the office, we get confronted with a difficult question that we are not prepared for. And although we want to run away from the meeting, screaming and hollering through the hallway, your neocortex tells you, I don't think so, buddy. Let's not do that. So it offers you the second best option, which is let's block and evade. What is that going to look like? It's going to look like we're going to put our hands in front of our eyes, we're going to rub our eyes, we're going to protect our neck, or we're going to lean back because we're distancing ourselves from the situation. Now, the third one, as you notice, it's absolutely the last resort, and that is fight. It has nothing to do with being brave or being afraid, nothing at all. It has to do with what is most efficient use of our resources because we want to live as long and as well as we can. We developed our strategy to turn our fear into rage to fight off attackers. So that's why it's a really, really bad idea to corner people that are afraid. Now, let's go back to the meeting scenario we were talking about. We discover we can't be invisible. We discover we can't run away from the meeting. And we really, really shouldn't pummel our coworker that's accusing us of not doing our job. Yeah, that's not a good idea either. So what do? Our fight response becomes an argument. An argument is just a physical fight that wasn't. Sarcasm, watered down insults, they're just an expression of fear. Therefore, the worst response in this case is engagement. The best is always to let things cool down and then use your body language to convey a safe atmosphere. And yes, my friends, I know you're probably right, but in this case, you'll be better off by not engaging. Let's take this down and let's start talking about what these signals look in the different parts of our body. These are going to be evident in 4 key areas: our face, neck, core, arms, hands, legs, and of course, our feet. As a signal emanating from discomfort or fear, the key instruction, think, preserve. To preserve, I have to either disappear, distance, block, or attack. Let's go and see the first group, and the first group is going to be face and neck. So for face and neck, we talked about the smiles in the first picture, remember A and B? Okay, and we talked about those laugh lines, the wrinkle lines on the eyes. Fear of discomfort is not going to have that, but it's going to be evident by tension. And tension manifests very, very well on the face. It's the tightening of the jaw muscles that you see on the gentleman at the bottom, the flaring of the nose wings, the eyes become smaller, they squint, and the quivering of the mouth, or what we saw, the disappearing lips. We also see our hands coming to the rescue and actively blocking what we deem unpleasant. We're going to talk, for example, about nervousness, hostility, through something as simple as a furrowed brow, followed, for example, by a hand touching the temples, like, again, the gentleman at the bottom. Remember, body language signals have to always be considered in relation to the cultural and environmental fact. If not, we can misread the signal completely by taking them out of context. For example, maybe this person is crossing their arms because they're just cold. It has nothing to do with what you're saying. That's what I mean by taking it in context. Now, whenever there is a limbic response, especially a threatening one, it's always going to be followed by what Navarro calls a pacifier. A pacifier or an adapter is going to be something that calms us down when we've experienced something unpleasant or dangerous. I want to show you what this looks like in real life. I think it's super, super impactful when you see it that way. So in this picture, we have our subject is scrolling on their tablet, and this is I want to see probably 3-second video, and what I want you to see is how quick these signal comes through. Here we go. Now, if we look at this, the picture, our subject is going to be looking at the screen, scrolling, and then there's a quick second when, boom, closing of the eyes. And the closing of the eyes is nothing else but a blocker, right? For some reason, they just saw something that was not pleasant, and they just close their eyes to block whatever is happening. That's a clear example of what this looks like in real life. Now, let me show you what this looks like when we're in a social experience. So I'm going to present to you, this is a couple, and I can tell you right from the beginning that this is not going that great. And I can tell you that because look at her face. Number one, she has the furrowed brow that we talked about. And on top of that, she also has the pressed lips. She has a blocker / pacifier hands on her neck. And if you see her eyes, they're not big, they're smaller. I want you to look closely and see what this looks like and see if you can detect exactly how the rest of these movements go. So let's see here. There you go. Okay, so in this case, this is a couple. It looks like they're having a pretty difficult conversation because as you can see, she closes, and when you do that very slow-mo closing of the eyes, boom, yikes, this looks ugly. So there's several key things here. The slow-mo closing of the eyes to increase the amount of blocking that's happening, her keeping her hands on under her neck and making it happen, and then obviously, you know, when she leaves, it's pretty clear that she's upset. So with that being said, I want to focus now on the rest of the body, and this one is going to go to core and arms. I am including here what we talk about the hands too, and the hands are kind of like all over the place because we use them in multiple instances. So our brain is always going to take so much care of our torso because it houses so many of our vital organs. When an object is thrown our way, we get an instinct to move away. Here, we're going to talk about the freeze, flight, or fight in reaction to our core and arms. A quick example is look at the subject that is obviously having an argument with his with another person, with a girl, because you see the tense shoulders and the strong, straight up hands. That's tension on there. Another one that I want you to look at is look at the girl that is in the middle of the lady with the red coat and the gentleman with the brownish coat. She is doing another very interesting blocker. She has her arm actively across her middle section, and on top of that, she has her drink right in front of her. That's a double blocker. And if you look, her head is tilted down. Again, this is all in trying to become as small as you can. And that's a key thing. When you reduce space, there's something going on. The one on the bottom is very interesting because this is a typical pacifier for gentlemen, to put your hands behind your head when you feel comfortable enough to reflect that you have a lot of confusion. So this could be very telling, especially if right after that you see the clasping of the hands behind. When we talk about that, the lower the clasp, the more authority or confidence there is. When you see that clasp of the other hand on your back going all the way to your elbow, that is a lot of confusion going on. We have the commentary about thumbs because the way that you use our thumbs can be super powerful. Look again at the girl. Do you see that the girl is hiding her hand completely? Yeah. So when you hide your hand or when you hide your thumbs, that is also considered a symbol of lack of authority, lack of confidence, and so forth. Now that we have a little bit of this, I want to show you a video, a studio, and I like this particularly because this resonates a lot with me. I'm a fairly tall person, and those of us who are tall, we tend to do this a lot. If you look at this, we have a group. This is an office setting. We have 4 subjects in the picture right now. The one standing tall, he looks to be the lead in the group, and he is surrounded by a girl, the girl with the short sleeves. She has a very open, you see her neck displayed. The other girl with the ponytail, she seems to be a little bit more apprehensive, and you see it because of the way that her hands, her arms, are very close to her core. Let's focus on him, the gentleman that's in the leadership role. He has his hand on his side, which is we call it a quote unquote fake authority sign. But more importantly, he has a chair right in front of him that he is using as a blocker, as a protector. We talked about tall people. Why this is important is because us tall people, we tend to feel awkward. I don't know why. So we tend to hunch a lot. What I want you to look at is look closely at his interaction with the gentleman. And let's see if something else happens and if his message resonates with somebody else in the group. So we have the meeting, and let me know when you can see it. Okay, so the meeting is going on pretty well. And then he starts to look for approval and consideration, and look how he goes directly to the chair again. And I love this because something that he said made the 4th person in the sitting group to lean forward. That is a great sign. You see somebody leaning towards you when you're talking, your message hit a home run. Now, another one is the mirroring or the pacifiers between the 2 guys. One does it. He's going to go touch his face, and wait a second, boom, there he goes. He touches his face too because they're both pacifying each other, but on top of that, they are trying to mirror. And mirroring is a beautiful thing. That just says that both of them are in tune with each other, and it's almost like saying, I don't want to fight you. So that is outstanding. We have the other group. Our last group, but not the least by far, is going to be our legs and feet. Our legs and feet have been the primary means of movement for us and critical to our survival because they have been so important for us to escape, to live, to go, and to gather things. They are also the most important part of our body. Our legs and feet, they're going to communicate exactly what we think, and it's going to tell everybody what we're thinking, even if we don't want it to. So on the top picture, you have a gentleman. He is seated talking with a female, and if you look at the way that he has his leg crossed, it's blocking the person he's talking to. So he is trying to be confident. If the conversation goes well, it is not unheard of that he would put that leg down and then he would cross the other one as a means of, I'm including you now because I have safe. When we talk about balance and position, it's just the way of your feet positioned with regards to the width of your hips. The gentleman that has the sneakers on the bottom picture, that is a comfortable one. Whereas the girl that has the 2 feet together, that's very submissive, shy, again, trying to reduce space. I wanted to show you the gentleman in the middle because the clasping or the crossing of legs, if you're in a group like this, signifies that people are very comfortable with each other. As in, I'm so comfortable that I can impact the way that I would run if need be. Now, when we're in a single setting like this unfortunately is a tell sign that I'm not so comfortable and I'm trying to, quote unquote, fake it to make it, kind of a thing. Now, let's put all of this in one picture. Let me show you what we're looking for. This is a group, and we took this picture because, oh my goodness, it has so much going on. We have the girls in the front, and they're doing a fabulous job. They're very engaged. But let's look at the group in the back. The gentleman that has the dark green shirt, he has not only his space minimized, but he's actively trying to get smaller by pushing his arms in front of him to increase the amount of smallness, let's call it that way, that he can be. The gentleman on the other side with the lighter green shirt, he has a more relaxed stance, but still, if you look at his hands, they're completely in his pocket. He's either not very convinced that he knows a lot about it, or he's just not interested. The lady that is next to him with a dark shirt, she has actually a drink going close to the middle of her body. In my sense, I read this as she feels not safe in this group. Probably she doesn't feel that she can interact as well as she can be. You know which one is my favorite? Yeah, the girl in the back. The girl in the back, if she could, she would be out of there in 3 seconds flat. You can see because she has not only her arms closed, but her hands are gone. Gone, baby, gone. She has the knee that is just showing displeasure or just showing lack of interest. And on top of that, she has her head tilted, which a head tilt read with the rest of these body language signals says, I do not believe that what you're saying is true. Let's take a very famous picture. Let's talk about the Dalai. So I love this picture because it's a very good example of why we should be very cognizant of what our body language looks like. The Dalai Lama has a posture that we call the ready, set, go. And it is when both feet are planted on the floor, we have our knees flexed in a way to, if need be, I'm going to go. This is classic of people who are talking about something that they request action or that requires action in their eyes. He has the brow open face, we call it elevated eyebrows, the mouth, and even the hand, the other hand, the left hand, supporting getting up and moving. On the other side, ex-President Obama has the key blocker, right? He's blocking the conversation with his other leg. He has his hand that goes also to block his mouth, as in, I don't want to say this, or this is something I don't want to talk about. But also, it's a key pacifier. Remember, most men tend to do that. The other hand on the chair, the left hand, is very interesting because this is quite an aggressive hand. You know, it's a display of the thumb, but the rest is planted on the seat. So I just thought this was something very, very interesting to look at. Now, with that being said, what do we do with all this? Well, let me throw another wrench into the mix. Let's talk about learning styles. So with learning styles, we're going to talk about the different ways that people react to each other besides how they feel regarding the environment. What I want you to look at is I want you to look at the way that he behaves with her, and where does his eyes go? How does she react to him? And specifically, what is the way that they communicate almost at the end? So in this case, this is obviously they're having breakfast, good for her. He keeps his eyes down, he shows the computer, and then he looks forward, she looks up to him, and then boom, they close it when she nods. The reason why this is so interesting is because for body language, when we talk about visual, auditory, and kinesthetics, what we want to do is we want to find out, on top of that, what is really being said. Peter Drucker said it fantastically. He said the most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said. Visual people are going to think in images, in pictures. They stand tall. They have colorful things on their bodies. We also tend to hold stress on our shoulders, and sometimes we carry wrinkles on our forehead because we look up when we remember things. In this case, when you want to react or when you want to be in conversational mode with somebody like this, you absolutely want to use words that say, looks great, I can see that, and very importantly, hold contact, eye contact. Because words and this body language of establishing eye contact resonates deeply. 60% of most of us are visuals. On the other side, we're going to have our friends, the auditory group. The auditory group, some people put them as introverts. That's kind of up for grabs, but this is a group that thinks sounds, words, and they're going to be much more in tune with unnecessary noise. If you have a conference going on or a meeting going on and there's that squeaky sound in the background, yep, you can lose them really quick. Listeners also tend to look down and to the left because that's what you do when you remember something that you heard. It's the coworker that at a meeting puts his hand on his head in his hand and that looks away when you are talking. This is good, actually, because what they are doing is they're tuning out the noise and focusing their hearing on your message. They mumble a little bit, but it's because they are imprinting what they're learning to themselves. Do not, no matter what, do not give a lot of eye contact in this group. Look and then look away. Give them some safe space so that they can absorb and digest the information. The third group is probably not as many as the auditory and the visual, and it's the kinesthetic group. So the kinesthetics, they're feelings, experiences, tactile. They are the big-time huggers. They're going to lean in when the message is working with them. They will touch your arm when they're passing by. They will also look down when hearing something because that's where you look when you remember how you felt. If you're comfortable, let them hug you, but if not, always stick out a hand so that they can shake your hand. The reason is because they're looking for a point of contact. That's just how they're processing. So with this being said, what I want you now to look at is let's figure out what do we do with all this information. Well, we get better, period. We get much better. There's five different ways that we can improve. Number one, developing emotional awareness of where we are and what our biases are and what's happening with the person that we have in front of us. It's super key to manage stress in the moment because when we are stressed, we can miss a ton of signals. Staying open is basically going back to probably I am coming from the wrong place. I'm thinking that my coworker hates me when all that is happening is that I have certain bias towards that person. And minimizing distractions is key because if we're thumbling through our phone when we're talking with somebody or when we're just looking at the background, we are going to miss a lot of things. I wanted to share with you a key tip. Let's say you have a big presentation. You're so nervous. You can't contain yourself. What do? Pose, breathe, and get a drink. Get a cup of water, something. Do you know why? because our system is conditioned that if you are drinking or eating, it means that you are safe. So immediately you relax. Take it for the next session. Some of the effects of improving our body language are going to be obviously repetition. We're reinforcing what was said, contradicting if we're not careful. Like you said, yeah, everything's great, but your hands are clasped, you have the furrowed brow. That's not going to work so much. My favorite here is accenting. When we improve our body language, it really heightens that good job to make it sound like you are amazing, and I'm so glad you're in the team. So take this to heart. Before we go, I wanted to share some of the key tips that I think are invaluable. Again, take this as this is a 3-hour session because it has a lot of hands-on, and our purpose is for people to start and end at a different place altogether and improved. Out of all these, what I would do is, number one, pay attention to inconsistencies. You're going to see things as a cluster. If there's something that doesn't feel right, that's where you know there is something wrong. Obviously, stay real. Who you are is who you are, and always celebrate the small successes of learning and keeping and staying disciplined with regards to your learning of body language. As we promised in the beginning, so we have today identified what body language is. We've talked about comfort and discomfort. Now, what do we do now? Well, often the best way to learn is by watching others. As you begin to build your arsenal of communication tactics and you look at other people's behaviors, you see how they're utilizing their body language. Observe people that are doing it really good. Think of TED Talks. But more importantly, observe people who are doing it poorly. Both are going to be very important in helping you become a better communicating. As you begin to hone in your observational abilities, you're going to be amazed at all that is going on. And it's actually a pretty cool ride. This communication track, and I think I shared with Michelle and Scott, specifically body language, has taken us to places as far as China, Russia, India, Serbia, all the way from billion-dollar companies to local nonprofit. We've trained folks in the C-suite, managers, team leads, teachers, unemployed folks re-entering the work. And we see the same reaction. There's a hunger, a curiosity to know, what is this body language thing about? It's about people. It's about people and listening and learning how to live better. This is an extremely powerful workshop that when we deliver it live, it blows people away. It does that because it focuses on awareness. It helps people imagine and see that there is a world where what we say is what is heard. That's what we learned today. We can make this world a much better one, not only for us, but also for those around us. It's always my absolute pleasure and infinite honor to open the door to you, to your friends, in changing the world around us by learning about nonverbals. Trust me, this will change your life. Thank you, everybody. You've been fantastic.
Hi, Elsa. We do have one question, if you don't mind answering.
Absolutely.
It's from Joshua. So he's asking, do you have a few books or journal article recommendations that deals with nonverbal communications and or micro expressions?
Oh, Joshua, you're my new best friend. Joshua, I've been doing this since 1986. So trust me, I know everything there is to know. No, not true. But Joshua, would you mind connecting with me through LinkedIn? Because I'd like to understand better where you are so I can tell you, what is the best book, so to speak. Please check my LinkedIn. It's right there. Hook with me as soon as you can, and I'll be more than happy. I'm passionate about this. So yes. Let's talk.
Great. We have another question. Could any shy person improve their body language or become a good communicator?
Oh, my goodness. Let me tell you guys a secret. I'm an introvert. Big big time introvert. And the reason why I had to learn body language is because I was so shy that my mother put me in a theater group. Well, that went on, that ballooned into me going on TV, becoming, being active in theater, in acting. And then I became an attorney. And you have to be really good at it. But my perfect place is hiding in my room Friday night with a book, door closed. So if I am here, yes, you can too.
Great. There's another question. Are the emotions also a part of body language?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Think about you slam the door and remember that you're so angry that your eyes well up. That's it. That is completely it. Remember, emotions are the core of body language. There's nothing else. It's super, super raw emotion just trying to come out. Great question, by the way.
Great. It looks like those are all the questions.
Awesome.
Thank you, Elsa, for this presentation. It was very, very informative. We are also offering the Distinguished Lecturer webinar series focusing on technical contents. The next webinar in the Distinguished Lecturer series will be held on the 23rd of June at 1 Eastern on 5 things that you should not use blockchains for by Martin Jatoun, a senior scientist at Cintiq Digital. Our next Build Your Career webinar will be on the 22nd of July at 12 Eastern Time on Lead Yourself First by Adam Schmidt, CEO and Principal Coach at Smarts Summit Coaching, LLC. Registrations for these upcoming events are now open. We will be sending you the links to these future events along with the slides and recordings to this webinar. Thank you again, everyone, and have a safe and wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody.